Great. So thank you everyone for joining us. I just wanted to spend a few moments, hopefully giving everyone the opportunity to introduce themselves. And what we're hoping to do as a part of this user acceptance testing kickoff for the COE module enhancements and enhancement fixes is walk you through a demo of all the enhancements and all the various scenarios that need to be tested as a part of this testing cycle. So we're hoping to go through a full demo as well as a review of the test scripts themselves, and then a few guidelines as it relates to the testing process and how we can operate over the next week or so. Feel free to stop us anytime if you have any questions. You can raise your hand through the WebEx, or feel free to chat, and we'll get back to you should there be any questions. So if I can ask for everyone to hopefully be unmuted, and maybe we can pass along to have each mission introduce themselves. Hopefully, great. Can you guys hear us?
Yes, I'm trying to unmute call in user 3.
Okay.
I don't know if you can hear us. I don't know who's behind. Which mission is that? Can you hear us? No. Okay. I'll continue and unmute Fares. Fares, can you hear us?
No problem. If you guys are connected just audio only with the audio and video only without microphone, that's fine. But as long as you can confirm that you can hear us. In New York today, we have myself, Krishna Natarajan, we have Tuta, and we have Hemant. So I'm going to hand it over to Hemant to start the demonstration.
Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hemant Kaduri. I'm part of the OICT service management team. Currently a business analyst in the UCM team. I was doing the ECOE support for quite a long time. In this today's session, I'm going to actually give you the list of all ECOE enhancements that are going live by end of this month. At the same time, we also have fixes that defects that are being fixed as part of the current hotfix release. So I'm going to go the list of all these particular enhancements and defects, and demo you, and at the same time parallelly would actually go with the UAT test scripts that will help you to actually perform this UAT and record the results. And currently, I'll be logging into the test environment, CRM UAT wraps, and I'll be using UNAMID mission as part of my demo today. Let me log in.
Yellow.
I'm now logged into the UCMS system, the test environment, and in the current dashboard, I see my mission that I'm part of UNAMID, and I'm seeing the list of all mission units under UNAMID. Now let me take you to the Excel spreadsheet that lists out all the enhancements. And the first enhancement is related to the unit cease date field in the verification report form section. As you know that the cessation date of a unit has been already released in the last COE, and we already have this functionality in the system. And it's just that we are actually exposing this particular field in the form section. Currently, this particular field is in the list section. If you look at in the application, when we click on this verification report, the top section is basically the list section, and you would basically see the unit cease date as part of the list. At the same time, if you highlight the record in the list section, you would basically see the detailed record in the form section in the bottom part. And okay. So if you see this, we have this unit cease date field in the form section. Previously, this particular field was hidden. In the sense, if I click on this Show More button, this particular unit cease date was part of the Show More window, and now this particular field has been exposed as part of the default field in the form section. As you know that the unit cease field, we are actually capturing the unit cease dates from the VR itself, so the functionality would actually work in the same way. So let's take a look at some VRs and try to input the unit cease date. So let me sort my VRs based upon the current period. If you look at the list of all VRs for the UNAMID, if I highlight the periodic VR, we can actually input the unit cease date. So when we're capturing the unit cease date, we generally capture it for the VR that are in draft status, only for the periodic operational readiness and the repatriation VRs, and it's all and the field becomes read-only for the arrival VR. So you can actually input the cease date here, and you can submit the VR. Once you capture the unit cease date, you can submit the VR, and submitting the VR would actually update the cessation date for the unit in the global lookup. Global lookup is a different screen where you could actually manage all your mission units in that particular screen. So this is the place where you can actually input the unit cease date. This is basically the first enhancement. We are actually exposing this unit cease field as part of the form section, and I have these assumptions and preconditions that you can actually go over. And any person who is actually performing this test needs to be set up as a COE agent in the UCMS test environment, and they have access to the application. Yes.
It's Michael from COE. Sorry, I've got it now. Ours is not appearing in the same, the field is not appearing in the same location as you. We're trying to follow it. It's actually below. Sorry about that. Yes, we have it.
Okay. So when you perform this UAT, we assume that a draft periodic ORI or a repatriation VR is generated for the current quarter, and you can actually use these high-level steps to actually input the cease date for a particular VR and submit the VR. Now let's go to the second enhancement, which is for the verification report module. Add new field serial number in the verification report SAG non-functionality section. Okay, so currently in the verification report SAG view, we are capturing the non-functionality for a particular unit, and currently we have these non-functionality records that are part of this particular SAG. System allows you to drill down onto the equipment, but we do have the UN numbers there, but there is no serial number. So for certain equipment like armaments, if you want to drill down on a particular equipment, system will not actually permitting that. So as part of the current enhancement, we also included the serial number field as part of that non-functionality section. Now let me go to the application and show you. So let me drill down onto the VR. If I click on SAG, let me check for any equipment that is non-functional. The way I do it is I highlight this particular. If you look at this particular line item, this particular line item has days non-functional and requiring ILO. And once this particular line item is highlighted, I can just click on the SAG tab, and the system will automatically highlight me the line item that I've selected, and it will show me the non-functionality equipment as part of this particular line item. And currently we expose this serial number field here. Earlier there was only UN number field here. Now allowing this particular field will actually allow you to drill down onto this equipment and can give you the equipment history. I'm not sure for this particular. So basically when you drill down on the serial number, it takes you to the detailed view, and it shows you the equipment history of that particular non-functional equipment. So in order to go back, I can use the thread here on the top left corner. I click on the SAG, and I will go back to the same place where I actually navigated before. So this is the enhancement that we have actually included, where we included the serial number as part of this particular non-functionality section under SAG. Now let's go to the third enhancement, which is about in the verification module, we have renamed labels for the sections under the verification report SS details. Currently for the self-sustainment VRs, we have this SS details view where we actually input the supported units and the supporting units for that particular unit. And let me take you to this particular section. Let me go to the verification reports. Now I'm going to highlight the self-sustainment VR, drill down on the self-sustainment VR, click on SS Details tab. Now I would, system will basically navigate me to this view, and I would basically see the supported units, supporting units sections. So previously these were labeled as supported and supporting units. Now we are actually relabeled as this unit provided support to the following. And you can manually enter the units here by clicking the new button. And you can input the from date, to date, the troop strength, and the reason, and the supported unit. Once you pick the supported unit, your system will automatically populate the troop strength of the MOU. And so these can be manually entered, the supported units and the supporting units. The unacceptability from inspections, earlier we were actually adding this unacceptability information for the line items. Now currently we're not allowing agents to actually input the unacceptability from this particular view, but it can be captured only through the inspections. So manually, we can only enter the supported units and the supporting units for a particular self-sustainment VR. So the change was just renaming the labels for the supported units, supporting units, and unacceptability. Let me go to the fourth enhancement, and this is a major enhancement. We have actually completely revamped the refresh VR functionality. Let us take a look at the different scenarios that we are actually considering in testing this particular functionality. Currently, as you know, that the refresh functionality will actually delete all the line items and again recreate line items from the annexes and the inspections that are performed for a particular VR period. So the current change that we are actually doing is we are actually displaying a caution message for the agents when they click on the refresh VR. Because there was a concern from the missions that when they enter the supporting units or the supported units manually for every VR, and when they do a refresh VR, these the data that was entered manually was getting deleted, and they have to re-enter the information every time they do a refresh VR. So as part of this particular change, when an agent performs a refresh VR, it will not delete or disassociate the units that were already added to that particular self-sustainment VR, and it will only refresh the VR, and it will update the unacceptability from the inspections that are captured for the particular VR period. So in this particular, if you look at the scenario description, you would basically look at the caution message, whether it is being displayed or not. And the section which is when you do a refresh VR, it ensures the data entered manually for the supporting units and the supported units are not deleted. So it also ensures that unacceptable section under assess details is refreshed based upon the data in the self-sustainment inspections. We also see this, the unacceptability section under the VR assess details will now be read-only, which means that the agents can actually capture the unacceptability only through the inspections, and they're not allowed to enter the unacceptability information directly from the assess details. Now the other part is for the major equipment. This is also a major change that was that is being included in the current release, wherein when you do a refresh VR, how it impacts the major equipment VRs that are already performed. So currently, when you do a refresh VR, it currently refreshes the non-functionality, the absences, and in lieu of we have these absences and in lieu of and non-functionality being captured in the in lieu of section under the VR, and that data gets refreshed every time when we do a refresh VR. And there's also a point which says that when you do a generate VR, system will automatically populate the data related to non-functionality and absences in that particular VR period. And if there is any change done after generating the VR, if you perform an inspection after you generate a VR, and if there is any change to the days serviceable or the days unserviceable, and when you perform a refresh VR, system will basically dissociate any ILOs that have been associated, and whatever the ILO that gets dissociated, you would basically see that as a comment in the inspection data column for that particular line item. So whatever explained, I will show it in the system by highlighting this. So let me now.
Any questions?
You have any questions on this?
I do not see any question on the chat box so far, so no
Okay.
question and no hands raised yet, so nothing.
Okay. So I'm clicking the verification report screen.
Hemant, can I ask you to wait for just a second? This
Sure.
is Shalini. I see a couple of emails from the UNAMID colleagues saying they're having issues connecting. I just wanted to ask if there's anyone at all from UNAMID who's connected. So there's no one. We don't have anyone on the chat either. No, we got emails saying UNAMID is having trouble connecting.
But if they cannot connect, they cannot access the chat, and I don't have any emails apart from the one that I have answered from Fatima.
Because I got another email from Lucas saying he is also having trouble connecting.
Okay.
So, okay, that's fine. I just wanted to check if anyone at all from UNAMID has connected. That's fine. I think we can continue and we'll have to talk to UNAMID separately. Okay, Hemant, you can continue.
Sure. So I'm in the verification report module. I'm sorting my verification reports. Yeah.
Hi, Ferris. Was there a question on your end? We had no.
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Sorry for disturbing you. The network here is very bad in my area, so I want to make sure about for the SS verification reports for the LU off. So each time when we generate the VR and the LU off, so when we refresh it, it will keep the main remarks from the last VR, for example, or we just refresh and do it again. That's my question.
Okay.
Okay, Perez, this is Tilda. For the self-sustainment, you have basically three features. You have supporting unit and supported units, and unacceptability or like we said in COE, not self-sustained in a particular category. Basically, once you start the verification report, you generate the verification report, you enter the information on supporting and supported units, though if you refresh it, that information will not be deleted. However, in case you make changes in unacceptability or any particular category that the unit is not self-sustaining, once you refresh, that information comes from the inspections, as we all know, and if you make any changes and you refresh the VR, that part will be refreshed based on your inspection record. So basically, you will it will be refreshed or it will be re-entered through when you make the changes from the inspection view.
Okay, got it. What about the major equipment? The
major equipment. He will explain right now. He will show it. Hemant will show it in the demo. However, just a brief one. In terms of the major equipment, they held in lieu of. This will be refreshed only when you make the changes at the equipment list. Basically, if you make in one particular change in let's say in G4x4, and that G4x4 had an held in lieu of, from the inspection record, that will be refreshed and regenerated because that part you have made the change. Whereas in the other equipment, if you have not made the change, the ILO will remain. Is that clear? Hemant will cover it in detail in the demo, and then later on you can send us more questions if you're not clear.
Thank you so much. That's
okay.
So let me sort all my verification report based upon the current period. Currently, as you see that I've actually generated few draft VRs for periodic and repatriation and operational readiness for the current quarter for the UNAMID mission. So let me select this particular unit, therefore a multi-role engineering unit for the Pakistan tree, and I'm going to drill down on the VR number, the major equipment, and if you look at the line items here, you would basically see the list of all line items that has these days absent and requiring ILO. And this is the way there you could actually see that if there is any equipment that are actually missing as part of this particular line item by highlighting this particular records here. If you look at this particular line item, truck tractor, once you highlight this particular truck tractor and click on in lieu of, system would actually take you to this particular tab, view, which is VR and absence and non-functionality, and you would also see the surplus items, and in the bottom you would see the ILO section. So you can highlight this particular record here, which is of type absence, and you would see this particular records are automatically created when you generate a VR, and system automatically calculates the absences and the non-functionality in the current VR period and populate the data here. So once you highlight this particular record, and you can click on compute surplus, clicking on compute surplus will display the list of all surplus equipment in the current VR period, and you can highlight any of the current surplus item and associate it to this particular to the ILO in the absence of this particular equipment. So now that I'm actually associating in lieu of equipment for an absence equipment, and if you perform for the absence, I'm actually doing an ILO. But if there is any non-functional equipment, let's select some other line item. If you select this particular line item, I would basically see there are currently 2 records for periods 11/3/2019 to 31/3. There are 2 quantities that are non-functional, and click on compute surplus, and you would see the surplus equipment for the period, and you can associate that particular surplus equipment as part of as in lieu of for that particular non-functional equipment. And when you're doing in lieu of, currently there was a defect that we've actually fixed, wherein when you select, let me select a proper line item, let's say no absence. So let's select truck utility cargo and compute the surplus. If you see that there are 4 truck utility cargoes of 1.5 to 2.1 that are absent in the field, and there are again under 1.5 tons truck utility cargo that is available. And if you want to use this particular under 1.5 ton against 1.5 to 2.5, you can also use this surplus item and associate it to the absence equipment. So clicking on this, it would pop up this particular window, and it shows you the start date and end date of the absence, and you can replace the quantity to replace. Quantity to replace, I can just put the quantity to replace. How can you go back to?
Just take it out. Close it.
Stop electric. I will replace quantity to replace as one and quantity used from surplus. If you see that under the surplus, I only see one equipment, that is surplus. So I can only use one from the surplus. And when I hit the submit button, system will actually associate the surplus item as part of my ILO. So I have this here. I've associated the ILO as part of this particular absence. If you see this, this absence section has been updated. Previously there was 4 as a quantity. Now I've associated one of the surplus as an ILO, and the quantity has got updated to 3. So once you associate this in the VR, and if there is any change that happens on the days serviceable or the days unserviceable for these, the question here is, this is the absence here, but if there is any non-functional equipment that I'm using an ILO, and if there is any change of days serviceability and days unserviceability for the non-functional equipment, when we do a refresh VR, automatically this particular ILO that was associated previously will get disassociated, and this particular line item at the VR level would also get updated with stating that you need to basically re-enter the ILO manually again. Not sure whether I have actually entered this. Basically, the inspection data column for the line item gets, you would basically see a text called the refresh of this VR has deleted the ILO records, system checks, and please check and re-enter if necessary. So that's basically the message that gets added in the inspection data field for that particular line item under the VR.
There's a hand. Lucas. Lucas, you have a question? Hello, Lucas, you have a question?
The chat.
Okay.
So let me go to the test scripts. If you look at the test scripts for this refresh VR, we have actually drafted a separate test script for this, and for the test script to actually, there's a test precondition, data precondition, wherein you have to generate a draft verification report for the self-sustainment and major expense scenarios. First thing is for the self-sustainment VR refresh, you would basically have a draft VR which is already created for the current quarter, and you go to this particular SS details and enter the supported units for the self-sustainment VR in the SS details, and you can also capture whatever the unacceptability that you're capturing at the in the VR period. It also gets captured, and when you perform a refresh, you would basically test that whatever the data that you've actually entered manually for the supporting units and the supported units would not get disassociated. So this is a test case for a self-sustainment VR refresh, and we have test scripts for the major equipment VR refresh. Basically, in this scenario, we are actually checking This scenario checks to ensure upon VR refresh, non-functionality information in the VR in lieu of section is updated when an inspection is performed after a VR is generated. So the scenario at the same time checks to ensure upon VR refresh, an ILO is removed that is added prior to the refresh and inspection is performed for non-functional equipment in the same VR period. So this check is performed by checking the comment on the inspection data field in the VR line items. So what I have that I explained in the system, you would actually try to replicate the same thing as part of this particular test script. You would capture the days serviceable, days unserviceable prior to the refresh VR. Then after the refresh VR, then you would basically compare it and check for the dissociation of this in lieu of equipment, and you have to add it manually back. And apart from that, the absence refresh, if you look at the absence refresh, in this particular case, you check to ensure that the absence quantity is refreshed based upon MOU quantity. You have any questions on this?
In case anybody has a question but they cannot, connect through audio, you can send us a question through the chat, please, and we will be able to answer that. I see a hand from Salma.
Yes. I unmute Salma now. Salma, can you hear us? Salma? Yes. Okay. Do you have a microphone, Salma? No microphone. Okay, Salma. So no worries, you can post your question on the chat address in all panelists if you don't mind. And the team in New York would be able to answer to it. Thank you. I think Halima. Halima, do you have a question?
No, please. No, please.
Okay. And who's that?
No.
Oh, shall I unmute him? No.
So as part of this,
okay. Let me just before you continue. I see that Salma has posted that in the chat. I don't know if you have access to the chat, but she says regarding supporting units, could you please highlight whether Unifill is part of the units, or at least can be found among the units? I have one unit which has some of its troops supported by some SS categories by Unifill.
All units should be part of, I mean, this is ECOE. So historically, I'm assuming you've had Unifill as a mission that has been supporting you.
Basically, the question is from Salma whether we have of the unit basically when supporting us. And this is something which we will take it with the OICT and have it included if possible before the go live. In the drop-down list, they should the request is to include UN. We cannot add individual missions, but it has to be a UN only.
So in this particular section, under the mesh supporting unit, supported, you would basically want to see the United Nations.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do quickly read what you want here.
Okay. Thank you, Jutta. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
I have another question from Michael Minuska. He says, sorry, this is out of the sequence. However, I have a question regarding the MA and serviceability. I noticed on the demo screen that there was only reason for non-functionality, but no comments field. Is this a permanent change? I don't know if you see where it is.
In non-functionality,
For the self-sustainment, SAG.
Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Yeah, sure. Okay, I will post it. Actually, I will post it to everyone, and you can see it. And I will also post the explanation or the example that he provides. Okay.
Was there a comment? There's no comment. I already have.
Do you see it now, Tota? Do you see his question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I've been able to expand it. It's very big.
This is for the unserviceability reasons.
If you look at this particular field, you can actually enter the reason for non-functionality.
Michael, I think your question is to have additional field which is in the reason for unserviceability, so that when you generate the VR, it will come directly to non-functionality. I do agree that other leaves it very vague, but we have already requested for 2 additional reasons to be included, especially when it comes to the no ammunition or expired ammunition, and also an additional one which was it requires major repair. But this is something which is, we have to include something which is more relevant to all the missions. The reasons, however, if you feel that you have one particular reason that you would like to see it in the unserviceability reason there, just let us know. We will consider that, and it should be an easy fix. We can add it, but I do agree that it should not be really used because it's very general. So it does not mean anything if you put it other for the reason of non-functionality or unserviceability. Does that answer your question, or?
I can try to unmute Michael if he has a microphone.
Or he can send us the question.
Okay, we have a sound problem. So yeah, he can confirm in the chat. Okay, thank you. And I don't see any other question for the moment.
So let me continue with the refresh VR test script. So the last section that here we are actually checking for the absences, how the system would actually calculate the absences for that. So we have for calculating the absence, we are actually giving access to edit the NX MOU quantity. So when you edit the MOU NX quantity and perform a refresh for a particular VR, you would basically see the absence on the change in quantity for that particular line item. So this particular test script would actually help you perform that particular check. So this worksheet would actually explain you perform the testing as part of the refresh functionality. Now let me go to the other this is other enhancement, which is to check for the verification report SAG absences data being updated, added during VR generation and VR refresh. Previously, the absences were being added manually by the COE agents. The absences data under the CAG for the verification report were being added manually by the COE agents. Now, the absences will get calculated automatically for the VR period. So this particular scenario would actually help you perform that particular check. And if you look at the particular look at the application, if you go to the SAG, if you navigate to the SAG tab under the VR, the absences, these earlier you were actually allowing agents to enter the absences manually here. Now, from the new hotfix release, system would actually automatically calculate the absences once a VR is generated, or performing a refresh, it would basically refresh the absence data every time. And if you also look at the section here, there are two fields that are included, which is quantity beyond the control of TPCC, and you would also see some other field, the reason for absence. We are actually including this the total days and the quantity beyond the control of TPCC. These two fields have been included as part of the absence, and you can capture that particular quantity beyond the control of TPCC. You can enter manually for that particular absence and give the reason why they're actually absent for that particular VR period. Previously, the beyond the control of TPCC was a flag. That particular flag has been removed, and it's now been made this one, absences. Let me see if there is any absences, and I can take you to that particular absence line item. Let me highlight this. 360 days. The workshop containers, and if I click on SAG, you would notice that there are 4 quantities that are absent, and you can input this information here. The quantity beyond the control of PCC, let's say like there are 2 quantities that are actually beyond the control of TPCC. You can input that and enter the reason for the absence. So this is as part of the previously there was a button here which actually calculates the absences. That particular button is now removed. The copy absence records button, this particular button is now removed. So the next enhancement is the major equipment verification PDF that you generate as a report, and there are changes to the ILO section. The change is basically, let me show it in the application. If you navigate to the VR, and let me check if there is any item that was added as an ILO. So I'm going to highlight this particular line item, because if you see this particular line item, it says used as an ILO against absence. So I can highlight this particular line item. If I drill down onto the in lieu of tab, you would see this particular line item gets highlighted. Oh, not seeing the ILO. So let me do a refresh to see if that gets populated. So this is a caution message that I was talking previously, that this particular caution message now displays every time you hit a refresh button. And when you hit the refresh again, it continues the refresh and it performs the refresh and refreshes the data.
In the meantime, does anybody have a question, please? Just to reconfirm that we will be sending these test scripts, and you can start testing it at your own computers. And I know that some of you are very you cannot hear us very well because the audio is not that good. But most of you are aware of the ECOE, and you've been doing already this the generation of the VRs for some time now. These are just the changes and the fixes that we have, introduced, and we will be introducing as of 29th of March. But if there is any specific question that you would like to be included in this demo, please let us know through the chat. If you're not able to send it, ask questions through audio. And we will send also the recording as well after this demo is concluded. I mean, after the WebEx.
I'm not sure whether it's taking time. So basically, when you have these in lieu of let me go to the VR again. Check. Yeah. Okay. So if you have any equipment that is added as an ILO, and when you generate a report, the verification report, if you highlight this, the verification report and go to the reports icon here, you can generate the verification report, the ME report. And hit the submit button. System would generate the verification, system would generate the PDF report. You can download it, and you would notice that the subcategory column has been added as part of the ILO section in the PDF as well. Earlier there was only earlier there was only like category and the description were part of the PDF report, and we have included subcategory as well in the PDF report as well. So this is the enhancement that was performed. Once the report gets generated, I can open that and show it to you. So meanwhile, let's go to the other enhancement. So this enhancement is about capturing the quantity service repatriation and quantity unserviceable repatriation as part of VR line items. Currently, we are already capturing the quantity repatriation for a repatriation VR, but we are actually adding two other columns in the line items that would basically capture the count of all equipment serviceable that are being repatriated and the count of all unserviceable equipment that are being repatriated. You would see this in the application. Let's look at this report first. Okay, not sure. Let's wait for some time to get this report generated. So meanwhile, let's look at this particular test case wherein we are actually capturing the quantity service repatriation, and so let's look at if there is any repatriation VR in the current period. If you look at, there is one particular refresh VR currently I've generated as part of the demo, and if I click on the verification report, you would see the quantity repatriation field already available, and you would see two other columns, which is quantity service repatriation and quantity unserviceable repatriation. So you would basically capture the serviceable equipment that are serviceable and unserviceable equipment as part of these two columns in the line items. So let's go to the other enhancement. Under the verification report, relabeled fields under VR form section and display MOU NX related fields in the VR list. we did some renaming of the fields in the verification report. Okay. So if you look at this particular section here, we have renamed this particular section, and we included few other fields here. The NX status, these are all renabled. NX status has been renamed, and there are a few other fields that have been renamed, and the MOU related NX information has been added in the verification report as well. So you would basically check the inclusion of fields and what are the fields that have been renamed in the verification section here in this particular enhancement. So the other enhancement is the merge of unique equipment for the surplus equipment associated to ILO. So this is also a check that we are actually performing when you do an association of ILO. Sometimes when you associate an ILO from a surplus equipment, and when you add the same surplus equipment by splitting the dates or by splitting the quantities, earlier there were 2 records that are being created for the ILO. Now these two records will now get merged if there is any day gap between the associations that we are performing. I can show it to you here in this particular, in one example here. Let me show it to you. So let me highlight this particular VR, and let me check if there is any non-functional equipment that can I use it to associate. Or absence. So let's select this one. Go to in lieu of. So I have 3 absence equipment, and I already have 2 other we already added here. So let me delete these as part of a check and try to associate the same. Okay. So I have 5 absence quantities here, and when I do a compute surplus, it shows me the surplus equipment. And for this particular truck utility 1.5, 2.5 ton, I have only 1 here. Okay. So if I want to associate this particular surplus equipment, I click on associate. So what was generally happening is when you're trying to associate this, if you split this dates 15, and when you do this association, you're actually associating only for the 15 days. Sorry, this one here. So for one, so I'm doing this association from 1 to 15. You would see this, the ILO got associated, 1 quantity used for January 1st to January 15th. So if I again associate the similar equipment here, 2.5 ton.
Is there a question?
Hey, Jutta. I don't see any question in the chat so far, neither any reaction from participants at the moment.
Under 1.5 tons. So when you associate the same item again for a different date, and the quant system will basically merge the 2 ILO records, and you would only see 1 particular ILO record. So when you try to split dates in the 2 different dates using the same surplus item, system will basically merge the ILO record. When you split the dates and when you split the quantities, system will merge the ILO records. You would test this this particular scenario here, and I have these two test cases where you actually split the dates and you also split the quantities and see how the association happens in the ILO. So you have detailed steps to actually go through and perform the ILO association, this particular test. So let's go to the defects that have been fixed.
Just to highlight what Hemant just you know, showed through the demo. If you have noticed, when previously in for verification report, you basically were associating one equipment, but it's through different time periods of within the quarter. Basically, that was being split and mismatched in the table, which is shown under the equipment used for ILO. What has been fixed now is that it will be merged. Basically, you will have like really continuous showing in the equipment list, and not like mixed and match, like first line and then the last line, and you're not able to read the dates. So that has been already fixed, and it will be in the list, and it will be shown as it is based on the date that has been associated as an ILO. Once you go through the script, you generate the VR as a PDF, you will see that change. Any questions so far?
So let's now get on to the defects that have been fixed. The first defect that has been fixed is the moving date format. So when an equipment was getting moved to some other unit within the mission, and the periodic inspection automatically gets generated, and when you generate a particular VR, the moving date comments, you would see it in the VR line items, and in the particular comment or the remarks, you are actually seeing in a different format, in MMDDYY format, and you would see this in the regular format now, which is in DDMMYY. So this has been fixed, is fixed in the current release. You would see that, and the next defect that has been fixed is unserviceability for not painted equipment should created only for the vehicles and not for the non-vehicles. So when an equipment mandates painting, currently when you perform an inspection for a vehicle and when you select the equipment is not painted, system would automatically mark that particular equipment as unserviceable. It was happening for all equipment, including vehicles, vehicle ambulance, and non-vehicles. So for the non-vehicles, we have removed this particular, we made it an exception wherein even when for a non-vehicle, when you select UN color as painted in the exception in the inspection as no, system would actually will not create any unserviceability related information. Instead, you are allowed to submit that particular inspection. So this change, you would see this the scenarios that you can actually test it, and there are two different scenarios that are actually drafted. You can go through the test script and perform the testing on that.
Okay, just on this, I know that many of you have raised these questions, and you've had the challenges, especially in the Q4 with the inspections, that if you put any of the equipment, which especially those which are non-vehicular, like containers or armaments and so on, if you put them as unserviceable, if you put that it's not painted, it was automatically raising unserviceability history or unserviceability record. Basically, that has been fixed, and now any equipment which is a vehicular equipment, which is only vehicles and ambulances, they will be reported, they will be generated as unserviceable if it's shown as not painted. Whereas the rest, you will continue, they will show, even if they are not painted, it will not raise an unserviceability record.
Yeah. So the other defect is under MOU annexes to exclude SU or SAT annexes from the MOU annex screen. This is already fixed in the production release. We've got a chat, a question. we have discovered that if the UN painted field was not completed at the time of arrival, we are unable to update. The only solution we can discover to cancel the arrival and start a new inspection.
We can take this question and respond back.
Yeah.
We can.
So this particular defect, we'll take a look at that particular question. Yeah. Michael, can you send a screenshot of that after the session? Or you can raise ECO support request through the service catalog that we have. We'll take a look at that particular incident and help you on that. In this particular defect, system was actually showing the SUI and SIT NXs under the MOU NX. This is already fixed in the current production, but in the current release, we're actually putting a filter on the business entity itself. It's basically a tight filter that you would basically will not see the SUR and SAT related annexes under the MOU annex. Yeah.
Well, that wasn't a defect that was raised by the field mission COE units. It's something that is related to the future scope of UCM. So this is just more of an FYI for our field users.
So the defect 5 is restrict the functionality that currently allows future dated equipment view. In the current system, when you move an equipment, when you hit the move button under the equipment, if you go navigate to the equipment, I think it's the session time. So in this particular defect, what we fixed is when you move an equipment from one unit to another unit, system is currently allowing the agents to actually put the future date in the move field, move date field. We are restricting that. You can only input or enter the current date or any date older than the current date. You cannot move an equipment in a future date. So this has been fixed in the current, will be in the current release. The last defect is about under the inspections, SS inspections, unacceptable view, restrict the functionality that allows null or zero value in the troop strength. So while capturing unacceptability for the self-sustainment inspections, when you enter any unacceptable information, the agents were actually entering information, or you can actually submit an inspection on unacceptability with a negative troop strength or a zero value. We are not allowing that anymore. You have to input the troop strength anything greater than 0. System will actually throw a validation if you don't input that particular value, and you should basically let me go to inspections. Okay, this has been frozen. Let me go to SS inspections. So under the SS inspections, you have these unacceptability. If I select no here as unacceptable in the worksheet, so when you step off this record here, the inspection is not acceptable, and you can enter the unacceptability date. If you see that 0 is automatically populated, and if you select the date, and if you try to, let me see. And try to save this record, it says reason is a required field. Type UAT and I try to save this, it says troop strength should be greater than 0. So this validation has been put under the troop strength. So you have to basically input the troop strength information here, any number other than 0. So these are the list of all defects and the enhancements that will be part of the current ECOE release. And you have to run this UAT test scripts and come back to us with the feedback of the test results. Thank you, and if you have any questions, please let us know.
Thank you guys so much for participating, and thank you to Hemant for the very thorough demo and review of the test scripts. As we had mentioned, after this session, we will be sending over the recording of the WebEx. We will be sending out the actual test scripts, and we'll be sending out additional instructions. And while we have a few moments left in the WebEx session, I just wanted to run through a quick presentation that we'll be sharing with you as it relates to the process for testing. As you guys know, we are expected to close this user acceptance testing cycle on the 22nd of March, which is Friday. On Friday morning, 8 a.m. New York time, we've scheduled a follow-up WebEx session with you to go through your test results, any pending issues that you might have. But as we go through in the process, please do not hesitate to reach out to Tuta, Hemant, and myself, as well as the rest of the team, with any questions that you might have or any issues that you might have as you're running through the various steps in each of the testing test cases. So just as a brief overview, user acceptance testing is the end user application testing where intended users, in this case, all of you guys who are already using ECOE and the COE module as a part of the application, to handle the real world, the required tasks in real world scenarios as defined by the business. UAT provides the intended users to record any defects, bugs that are discovered so that they can be resolved before the 29 March go live of these enhancements and enhancement fixes. So as we go through, the main objectives, as we had said, is the fixes to test, the fixes to the enhancements from Work Package 1A, which were previously released on the 15th of December, as well as some of the other additional minor enhancements and defect fixes that Hemant has gone through. We've nominated 5 missions to participate in the testing cycle: MINUSMA, MINUSCA, UNIFIL, UNIMID, and UNMIS. We've included your names as testers, so please do let us know if anything has changed or if there's anyone else from your teams that we should include. As we move on, the main things that you will need for testing, and we're hoping that this will be a fairly simple process. Your Unite login credentials, your Unite ID and password, similar to how you would log in to ecoe.un.org. The test cases, which we will email to you right after this WebEx session. And of course, the UAT testing environment, which can be accessed through this link. We'll also share this link through the email as well for easy reference. Each test case file will be issued to an individual tester, where the file name should be saved as with the tester's name. Testers are also requested to create a separate Microsoft Word document to be saved with their mission and name to capture any screenshots. And we recommend that you might not necessarily need to take a screenshot for every single step, but we would appreciate it if a screenshot can be taken after a completed action or an expected output. Of course, if you have any issues, defects, or approached by any errors, please do take screenshots of those and include those when sending those details to us for resolution or clarification. So just at a high level, the testing process will involve us sending you the test cases via email. You'll be able to open the email and the test case attachment. The testers will then, you can save the test case Excel file to your desktop. You'll run the test scripts in the test case. If you experience any issues as you're going through in the UAT environment to perform each of the steps indicated in the test script, Please do make sure that they're recorded. You have all the details, including the unit, the mission, the annex that you're using, the VR record, any and all pertinent details to allow us to dive in a bit deeper. And then we request, if you have those details or are faced with that scenario, please do email those to us, including the screenshots and any of those key steps as we had mentioned, and continue on to test until the test case is fully complete. We will then request you to save the file and email us the completed version of the Excel document, one per individual tester, to us before the close of business on 22nd March, so that way we can move forward. In the event that there is any retesting that's required, we will be doing that the subsequent week. So we would be looking at the 25th and the 26th, next Monday and Tuesday, for any retesting that might be required. So similarly, once any bugs and defects have been resolved, we will share instructions with you on how to retest that scenario or that test case, so that way we can confirm that it is passed and it is satisfactory. So as Hemant had showed you, the test cases have been created based off of use case scenarios of varying complexity. Each test case is within one single workbook, a relevant test script for the particular scenario, a summary of the results, and then the steps required to complete the actual tested scenario. I just wanted to highlight the various scenarios that will be tested. So there's about 16 scenarios, and they're all detailed in the Excel files. We wanted to provide an overview of how the test case is actually structured. So you'll have the actual steps and cases listed, and the scenario descriptions listed for you to be able to go through, as Hemant had gone through earlier. We wanted to show that the UAT environment is identical to the ECOE production environment that you use. So we anticipate there should be no issues with navigation, logging in, etc. But if there is, please do let us know as well. And then, just as a note for some best practices, as we had said, if there's any issues that you face, please make sure that you detail those in the description of your issue to us via email. Please don't hesitate to share with us any improvements, any new features, or additional enhancements that you would like to see via email as well, so we can consider those for any subsequent releases. And it's also important that from an audit perspective, that we include the screenshots. It's a very critical thing. We just had the BOA come and audit us as a part of the Emoja Extension 2 portfolio, and they were clearly looking for all the screenshots and proof of test completion from the previous cycle. So that's pretty much from this on with regard to the presentation. Would like to open the floor for any questions or concerns, but we do sincerely appreciate all the time and effort that you will help put into this to ensure that we complete all the testing within this week, and we are at your helm for any support that you guys need. I'll pass it off to Tuta in case she has anything else to add.
I think Fares has a question on ECOE Mobile. Can you please, Fares, can you hear us? Can you please raise your question?
Yeah, thank you so much. So I have a question in our ECOE Mobile Inspector in our tablets. So regarding the self-sustainment, for example, the tentage and the accommodations. So when I click for example for the inspections, the service provider we will have 4 options: not applicable, United Nations, contributing country, and African Union, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So now, for example, if I have a unit which has been provided by UN accommodation, so I will put it United Nations, right?
Correct.
What about the tentage?
The same even for tentage. It should be if it's UN provided, you should be able to select for UN provided tentage.
No, I cannot even choose the not applicable because I cannot put the UN provided the 2. and the country will not get the reimbursement of the two, whether it's a computer
yeah, but it can be at times that the UN providing accommodation, but there are also some personnel which are housed in UN tents. So you should be able to record that in terms of applicable proof strength, right? It cannot be like 100% in accommodation or 100% in tented, but it can be also split. If there are some personnel which are being given a UN tent, you should be able to report that based on the actual personnel.
Yeah, I agree with you. But for the case that all 100% from the contingent had the accommodation provided by UN. So about the percentage, I cannot choose the not applicable, because I cannot choose the United Nations, I cannot choose the contributing country, I cannot choose the African Union. Whenever I want to click not applicable, there is a message service provided is required. So I'm forced to choose whether United Nations or contributing country, and that's wrong.
Yes, of course, it is wrong. I agree with you. But what does the MOU say for that particular category for that unit? Does it say it's not applicable, or does it give UN or it says not applicable? If it says not applicable, it should not prompt you to actually include either TCC or UN. But if it says in the MOU that it's either UN or TCC based on the either draft MOU or the previous MOU, and that has not been amended, then it will always opt you, because you cannot have from UN as not applicable or from TCC as not applicable. So it has to be checked what is the MOU saying, and that's why it is prompting you. So you can always check what is the MOU. What I want to also just highlight here, and I hope that everybody can hear me, is that it's very important, and I'm sure that all of you are doing it, but just want to highlight that, especially now that we are making so many enhancements in ECOE desktop, it's important that before you go for inspection and you synchronize your tablets, so that it can take all these enhancements, and you should not, you don't have any problems when you are on the ground inspecting. Also, it is important that when you come back, is that you synchronize your tablet so that you have the results from the inspection. If there are any issues while doing all these synchronization, even after synchronization, then please raise it to us, and we will see with the Bangkok team that how this can be fixed. Any other questions?
I think Veronica had a question. I will unmute her now. Veronica, do you have a microphone? No. Okay. No, I think she... Can you hear me, Dota?
Yes, I can hear you. I think I got the question from Veronica, but we can address
Fantastic.
her, because this is related to CMMRB, and I think it is related to the rotation of UN or rotation of equipment under the UN expense. Therefore, we can send her an email, and she can send her a question with what is specifically that she's looking for, so that we can understand. But if it's anything to do with the rotation, we'll have to see. We have to see what the specific question is when it relates to the equipment rotated under the UN expense.
Okay, good. Then from my side, I don't see any question on the chat, neither any request to ask any question for the moment. So yeah, that's it.
I think, Saida, you can also stop recording. I think we have already gone through the demo, but any specific questions, then we can address it separately from our side.
Okay, very good. Record, stop now.
Is there a question from Halima?
Halima, you are unmuted. I don't know if you have a microphone. No. No. I don't think Halima has a microphone, or at least I cannot unmute her.
Hello? Yes, colleagues, can you hear me?
Yes, Halima, we can hear you.
Yes. When I open my eCOE mobile, I get an error from reference missing. I'm unable to do anything.
I'm sorry, we could not hear you, Halima. This is related to eCOE mobile, the question?
Yes. When I log into my eCOE mobile, I get an error message, reference missing.
Okay,
so somehow, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't get synchronized properly. Is that the problem that you're having with synchronization of the tablet with the desktop?
No, it doesn't synchronize at all.
Okay.
I could not like
Okay, Halima, I would suggest that you raise this question with your CITS desktop the desk officer with your mission, because that's something to do with your mission specifically, if it's not synchronizing properly. However, if you have any other questions specific to eCOE mobile, that you cannot see any, any data related to eCOE, then please raise the question to us and also to the Bangkok team, then we'll be able to address that.
Actually, I don't think it has to do with synchronization. No, when I open the eCOE mobile, at the top of it says
Halima, I think we're having